Decisions.
Wait a minute. Are you still looking for cars on Carvana?
Yeah, decisions.
When I used Carvana, I found the exact car I was looking for in minutes. Bought it on the spot.
Electric or full diesel? Decisions.
Come on, you've been at it for weeks. Just buy it already.
You're right. Crossover it is. Decisions decided.
Whether you know exactly what you want or like to take your time, buy your car the convenient way with Carvana.
What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
Welcome to the Idaho Sheriff live stream broadcast with Dan Wilson for Kootenai County Sheriff. Here we discuss all things liberty without compromise. I'm your co-host and producer, Dawna Wilson, here to screen your questions and comments. We invite them all. Dan's going to answer them. You'll only be censored or put in a time if you start cussing or being inappropriate, or just if you're flooding the comment section without comments that aren't moving the discussion forward. Anyone with that question, just put it right into the comment section on whichever platform you're watching. And as always, for the most interactive and full screen experience, you can join us on Facebook or YouTube. Instagram still works. If you've got trouble with that feed, come on over to Instagram or YouTube. Take a moment to share this live broadcast right now to your profile so that your friends can also join in. And if you're listening back on the Idaho Sheriff podcast, thank you for joining us. And remember, listen and subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your shows. Did you know that Dan Wilson is the only sheriff candidate recommended as the constitutional sheriff for Kootenai County by Sheriff Richard Mack, the only one, and retired Brigadier General Blaine Holt? Now, here's Dan Wilson.
Man, you have such great introductions. I don't know how to even top what you just were able to pull off.
Just keep working on it.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me again tonight. We are going to make this hour cram-packed full of information. You're probably going to want to re-watch it later on because of all the things that we'll be discussing. We're going to try to get it all in about an hour, maybe a little more. But what we don't finish this week, we'll definitely pick up next week. So thanks so much for coming and participating. Ask your question. And look, last week, one of my biggest detractors locally here in Kootenai County, although I don't think you could ever make her happy.
No.
She asked, she finally had a chance. She was invited to come and ask a question, and she's been asking all these really big questions online. And when she got here, all she wanted to know was, when she finally asked the question,
she wanted to know why a couple of personal Instagram accounts you had in the past, why they were made private.
Yeah. And so I offered, 1 week ago tonight, I offered this individual, you can go back and watch last week's episode. Look, I will meet with you, Donna and I will meet with you at a public place. I will allow you to see what's on those accounts. And all you have to do is reach out to us. And you know what? We never heard back.
We've never heard back.
Crickets.
And for the biggest detractors, I think I can safely say they've also never come to an in-person town hall.
They're always busy.
we'd be willing to meet. Dan and I always meet together. So we're not doing some weird off the record conversation trying to set anybody up. But when you've got those unanswered questions, Dan's here to answer them. We do it in a safe environment so that you feel nice and safe.
Now, because I wanted to go one step, further and really give you guys a solid, I opened up my personal Dan Dawna Wilson Instagram account. You guys can go there yourself, take a look. It's posts that I made prior to running. And I dare you to look through any of those and find something that is unwholesome. Now, if you get all wound up, wrapped up around the axle, certain people, because there's a hashtag that, oh my God, it's so offensive. Well, you need to probably do your research as to why hashtags exist. If you've been online for any amount of time, you should already know that. And secondly, look at the content of the message, not what you think a hashtag says. In fact, you're completely disingenuous if you insist otherwise. So anyway, I wanted to get that out in the open before I forget. What an amazing weekend we had. Not only have we had speaking engagements back to back to back, meeting people, lots of events taking place, but we had a fundraiser last Saturday. And I want to give a heartfelt, extensive, appreciative thank you to Brad and Lisa for hosting our event. I don't think we could have had a better night. Temperature, the complete ambiance of the settings of this beautiful estate, the conversations with the people that were there. We went well into the late night, and I just thank everybody who came to listen to the message, that gave generously, and the conversations that ensued before and after. Thank you all. Thank you all to the volunteers. Thank you to those who have been helping us wave signs. I think we had a team out today waving signs. I couldn't join them, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I just saw some follow-up pictures to that, and then also an update. They were out waving signs in Riverstone area, and they got lots of honks and thumbs up from people. So the reception there for Dan Wilson for Kootenai County Sheriff was very positive. So
when we started flying our flags, so to speak, by putting the banners up early spring, we had a good amount of people honking and waving.
This is the story of the one who, as a maintenance specialist for a historic high-rise, knows that vintage charm historically needs constant attention. Which is why when it's time to upgrade turn-of-the-century mechanicals, they turn to Grainger. With easy access to 1 million-plus products and the scale to deliver when and where you need them. The right tools and supplies are never far away. So the one can keep that vintage building running like new. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
After the summer, after the fair, when we were waving signs on Saturday, I would say that it was exponentially higher than I had even anticipated. For those that were giving the thumbs up, that were yelling, that were honking, they all love liberty without compromise, and that will not be subdued. All of you out there that are not part of the KCRCC, that debacle, all of you that aren't a part of that organization, but are hardworking, conservative, or liberty-minded people that believe in the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, and so on, you are welcome along with the Idaho Sheriff. And I'm continually amazed at the people in this community that will come up and have a conversation. Remember, in America, we have no nobility. We have no royalty. Every American is created equal in value, and we all labor shoulder to shoulder in the cause of liberty. If you haven't joined up the cause yet, get on board. Let's do this.
The other thing that's been neat to watch is we're sign waving on intersections, sometimes spread out over 4 corners, or at least they're on a couple of corners. But people have parked their car and walked over to say, come curbside, to say hi to you and have a conversation. Yeah. And we had that happen last weekend when we were out, and we had a kid that said, hey, I've been following you guys, love what you're doing. So it's that's happening a lot more often when you're out, that
last Saturday,
people are wanting to have conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And last Friday, it was in Post Falls in a parking lot having a conversation, and a guy drives past and he immediately whips back around, he jumps out and says, hey, are you Dan Wilson? We got to talking. He heard the message online. He's not a part of any political organization here. In fact, he cannot stand political organizations. But he said, I'm supporting you because of what you stand for and because of the leadership that you have provided to this community. I fully support you. We got a picture taken. And then yesterday, I was at a coffee shop. Ran into two people that have been following me as well. In fact, one man, he came in and he said, I was just watching your video that popped up on my feed as I was coming in. We had a 45-minute conversation. Brilliant young man. Same thing. He asked, how can I help the campaign? And so we're bringing him on. Yeah, if you want to help, let us know.
And I was going to say, for anybody that says you're not accessible or they just don't know what you're about,
yeah,
it's like, well, I'd challenge that because you're going in to grab a cup of coffee and still taking your time to stop and talk with a kid for 45 minutes. So you're there, you're accessible, you're ready to do it. Comment coming in on Instagram from Fox Contracting Services said that they did that, stopped by to talk to you at the fair, and just saying you were very personal and kind. Yeah. So maybe that goes against what
and you were
some
as
may
well.
think.
In fact, I loved your little one that you had, and I love the conversation. So this county is so full of good people. I love the people of Kootenai County, and it is my desire, it is my goal to do everything that I can to provide the leadership and overall protection of the great citizens, just like you, right here in Kootenai County and the countless others. So I had another re-endorsement this weekend, or confirmation, I guess it would have been. There was a rumor going around through some local groups that Bob Norris was claiming that he actually was a constitutional sheriff and that he was the one that got the endorsement of Sheriff Richard Mack and that I was lying. And of course, that is not true, as we have shown since April of this year when Sheriff Mack came to Kootenai County in Coeur d'Alene. He put on a presentation not only for locals, but elected officials and law enforcement. Unfortunately, I don't believe any law enforcement showed up to include Sheriff Bob Norris. But Sheriff Mack at that event endorsed me. And we have been running with that endorsement for many, many months.
What do you call it when you get saved and then like when we were kids, you got saved and then it was like,
backslide?
No, and then you get saved again.
Oh, resaved? I don't know.
What do we call that? There was something we called that.
Rededicate. Rededicate. Yeah, there you go.
So Sheriff Mack had to rededicate his endorsement.
Well, we wanted to do something that was extremely definitive so that the lives that are out there going through the community and in the region could be, shut down once and for all. So let's watch Sheriff Mack and his re-endorsement.
Okay, let's do that. I'm trying here because I actually didn't have that. I saw that coming up on the notes and I thought, I didn't.
Well, you're brilliant because that was my bad prep. But
I'll blame it on you.
Once again, Sheriff Mack, I greatly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. I believe that when you watch this clip, it will be definitive as to who Sheriff Mack, the legend himself, the one who sued the Clinton administration and went before the Supreme Court, and he won. Sheriff Richard Mack.
Hi, everybody. It's Sheriff Mack from Arizona. Most of you know that in the 1990s, when I was sheriff, I sued the federal government and won a case at the United States Supreme Court. For what? To protect the office of sheriff from the overreach of the federal government. Now I've dedicated my life to electing sheriffs who will actually stand for the same principles. Do you want a constitutional sheriff in your county? Kootenai County deserves a sheriff that will put liberty, civil rights, and freedom for all first. That's Dan Wilson. I'm supporting Dan Wilson for your sheriff because he will be that kind of sheriff. We can't be messing around with anybody else. Freedom first, Dan Wilson for Kootenai County Sheriff.
I think that is pretty clear. I think it's clear. And Bob, just in case you were confused, that is Sheriff Richard Mack, and he is definitely saying that Kootenai County deserves a constitutional sheriff, and I'm grateful for his endorsement. Now, I also had another great honor this week from former, I shouldn't say former, retired Brigadier General Blaine Holt. Blaine has quite an extensive resume. You should follow him on Twitter, and I think it's under the irascribable something or other Holt. I should have had that ready. But if you type in Blaine Holt, you'll find his Twitter page. He is full of posts. He's anti-globalist. He's all about constitutional rule and a frequent contributor to things like Newsmax. So again, it was a great honor to have him. He said extremely kind words about why he was supporting me, and I'm extremely grateful for that. So I know that made a lot of people here immediately upset, including Sheriff Bob Norris in his official capacity, because he doesn't understand the difference between, sunshine laws that state you cannot campaign when you're in uniform in your official capacity. But he blows right through that. He used the official Kootenai County Sheriff's Office Facebook page to refute an endorsement by a citizen, Blaine Holt. And, the accusations that flew, I didn't pull it up. I'm going to share those screenshots on Instagram. Maybe we'll put them on Facebook as well. I want you to see once again what a tyrant Bob Norris is. I've been telling you this for months. I've shown you many examples when he blows his top, when he gets irate, when he goes after citizens like the woman who filed a tort claim against him for things that he said in Cataldo. And then he offered a $10,000 reward later on, a bounty, if you will, for anybody that would be able to prove that she's a liar. And now here you have a man who has served his country honorably, that has quite an impressive resume. And what does he do? He immediately attacks this individual. So I want you to pay attention, those of you who are here in Kootenai County. Pay attention to what this knucklehead sheriff of yours is doing and saying. But I guess it really doesn't matter. And before I go into the next segment, I do want to say this is September 11th. And we recall that dark day in 2001 when terrorists attacked our country, and it has never been the same since that day. And we mourn the loss of those 3,000 plus people that died in those attacks, not only in airplanes crashing into fields, but into the Pentagon and into the towers. We will not forget. We will remember. And despite all of that, despite all the politics that has happened since then, the ridiculous wars where we wasted our servicemen's lives for what? We salute those who served honorably and gave their ultimate sacrifice or returned extremely battered and broken. We remember you as well, and we will not forget. And as sheriff of this county, I will always take care of our veterans in this county.
I don't want to put a cloud on the statement that you just made, but we do have, I want to remind everybody, drop your questions and comments into the comment section on whatever platform you're watching tonight, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and I'll get those over to Dan. I want to let Mike Petum know that I am the one screening the comments and questions. Dan actually cannot see them. So him, in all his infinite wisdom, wanted to give you a lecture for, instead of campaigning today, it would have been more important to remember 9/11. So just to say that was something that Dan had respectfully planned to do. That was not at your prompting, and I want to go on the record to say that.
Oh, is he saying something in there?
Well, that was the comment he dropped, and then he said nice recovery, assuming that you were reading that up on the screen and hadn't planned to do that, or that you somehow felt that campaigning today was more important than remembering a solemn occasion.
Okay, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for that. So go ahead and drop those comments in. I also want to remind you guys that to subscribe to our YouTube channel, that the content there is growing by the day. We've got a short segment, a special segment there on the license plate recognition that continues to get views and comments. And so that's growing by the day, showing us that has really been a hot button issue there on YouTube. So subscribe to the channel. Not only will you get automatic reminders when we go live, but you're going to see the growing content there that's been issues important to the people here of Kootenai County.
What's been going on with our debate videos, our debate request/challenge?
We have had over 30,000, probably nearly reaching 35,000 views on that video. It's been shared a whole lot of times, lots of comments on it. Mm-hmm. So we know that it's getting visibility in Kootenai County, and we know that being able to see a debate between sheriff candidates is important to the voters and people here in Kootenai County. So no matter how much other media outlets may be ignoring that or trying to suppress it, it is something that we know people are asking about when we open the front door and walk outside and are having real life conversations with people. That's something they're asking to see so that they feel they can see these two candidates side by side and make that vote and be informed in doing so.
Yeah. Well, Bob refuses. He now has 4 more days, I believe, to respond. If and when he does not respond, we will, instead of a debate, we're going to have a big town hall for everybody in the county to show up, and we're going to be there to talk with the people. I love talking with the people. I don't think there's ever a time where I meet with a group and I spread the message. Not only do I talk about what's going on in our world, but I also talk about what's good, what plan of action that I have, despite the fact that there are these alternative medias here locally we're going to talk about shortly that want to say the direct opposite, that want to spread the mistruths. But we are going to have our own rally if Bob decides that, he's too chicken to actually debate me.
We do have some questions coming in. I know that we've got some other things we want to cover. So yeah, if now's a good time, I'm going to take one from Facebook. We have Logan. Thanks for watching tonight and joining in the discussion. He says, you've discussed the idea of forming a citizens posse to help support law enforcement. How would you ensure that such a group is well-trained, accountable, and integrated into existing law enforcement efforts without overstepping legal boundaries?
Yeah, well, they're going to be vetted for first and foremost. And we already have policies that we are going to use and adopt as boilerplate from other successful posses that have been used here in the West. So it won't be just a free for all. We will definitely have a division, a volunteer service division, and it will be set by policies and training, and it will be rolled out in an effective manner. Again, I want to stress, these are not individuals. For the citizens, vetted citizens posse, we're not bringing out people to put a badge and a gun on them and have them enforce the law. Think of these as our own citizen response for major events. And it could even be a major event such as wildfires like we had up here. I've talked about this before. So we're going to be breaking things up by districts, and we will have, in addition to these plans, we'll have our team leaders in certain districts that will be their representative to their neighbors so that when the events happen, we're going to have one point of contact. But it's going to be robust. It's going to take a little while to roll out, but action beats reaction. We've done nothing so far. Bob tries to claim frequently. After I rolled out my citizens posse back in, December? By January, when he went on the podcast, I think it was, it was his opening kickoff for his election.
Yeah. Yep.
And he wanted to say that he's going to have a
and
vetted
he was being
volunteer.
Interviewed by Charity Joy of the Kootenai Journal.
Yeah,
and
true.
that's when he gave that little tidbit as to what his plans were, his re-election plans were.
And he only changed from the word posse. I've used posse because that's what's in the law. But it was funny that after we challenged him and said, yeah, you're a little late to the dance on this, he came back around and tried to claim, well, his search and rescue is the same thing. No, it's not, Bob. You know this, and I know it. Search and rescue is not the same as the vetted citizens posse. So, Logan, that's what we're going to be doing. Again, it's not going to be Dan Wilson just making things up. We already have boilerplates from successful agencies across the West that have already used their own citizens posse.
We'll take one more question from Facebook before heading into talking about Kootenai County Republican Central Committee, because they had a big day yesterday along with the presidential candidate debate, but they were busy doing their own thing. So this next question is from Neil Uhrig, coming in on Facebook. Thanks for joining us. Glad to have you here. He says, hi, Dan. I'm wondering if you can walk us through what your first 100 days in office will look like.
Well, I've said before, 100 days, I talk about the first initial 30, 90 days, etc. But we're going to be sitting down and resetting the table when it comes to federal law enforcement working here in Kootenai County. So with my transition team, with my undersheriff, who is somebody that is very, very loved here locally, active law enforcement that has quite an extensive background, and the rest of my transition team, we're going to be taking a look at what's going on overall in the office, figuring out what we need to do immediately to start correcting things. But I've said this before, I'm going to start the Citizens Posse. We're also going to be looking at starting our Deputy Reserve Program. And we're going to be going before the county commissioners, I will be, to ask for funds to have enough money to conduct a forensic audit of the books from top to the bottom so we can evaluate what's going on. So the undersheriff and I, who I've been meeting with, we already have our strategy on how we're going to start rolling things out. I'm not going to say a lot there, but as you know, the first 30 days, we start setting the policies, and then we have our 60, 90-day out reviews, and we start tweaking from there. So I would say that the 100 days is more long. It should be 6 months for our re-eval to see where we're at, and that's what we're going to be doing. So
I also know that you have had some doctrines, that you have doctrines in place that are your overarching guidance of character, moral, ethics that never change based on what policies, when policies do change.
Right.
When will you be releasing those doctrines?
We'll be doing those closer to the actual election day. But one other thing, Neil, that I didn't mention, in addition to meeting with the federal law enforcement to have a discussion on what will and will not be allowed in the county as far as conduct goes, we're also I'm going to be meeting with all the chiefs. And it is my goal and my desire to get to know each and every one of them, to find out what their expertise is. I'm not going to be a 5-star sheriff. I'm going to be a 2-star sheriff out of respect to the chiefs. And I'm going to look to the chiefs for their guidance in a lot of areas when it comes to securing the county. So I'm really looking forward to getting a chance to meet the men and women that are part of law enforcement here in Kootenai County, and figuring out how the sheriff's office can better be a servant to all the other outlying agencies as we work on the ultimate goal of securing this county for everyone.
Brad, I didn't miss your question. We'll come back to that in a bit. I want to talk about the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee, which we have been told the conservatives in Kootenai County really just could not function without that central committee and their vetting process. Mm-hmm. And if you intend to be a viable candidate and stand a chance, then you would really need that recommendation of the central committee. So they had their, I don't know if they call it a revote.
Well, you have to set it up a little bit.
Yeah, but you go ahead and do that.
I believe that the vetting process, as it was originally set up, had great intentions. I mean, I think that those that were behind it really were solid in their methodology and as to why they wanted to do it. But I think, like a lot of organizations, unfortunately, you get certain key individuals that get in there and they mess the whole thing up. And we've seen this. We've seen exactly how fractured the KCRCC has become. Look, you had a bunch of North Idaho Republicans split off. And, when I first heard about that, I was kind of like, well, that's odd. Are these rhinos? What does that mean? And then as I've gone through the process and I have experienced some of the dysfunction of the current KCRCC, I kind of get it. So a little background for those of you who maybe are just catching up. This vetting process has now moved into the primaries. So they don't wait until a general election to make their endorsements. I don't think we call it their suggestions. I don't think we actually call it an endorsement, but it's the recommendations. Yeah. But they started doing it in the primary. Why they did it in the primary, I don't know. I agree with John Padula, who said it should have never take place, and it caused a lot of animosity. So this year in particular, after losing several key races in 2022 and 23, you found the Central Committee this year was at war. And who were they at war with? Well, not only that cluster of people that want to control things, but more specifically, Bruce Matari. Bruce Matari thinks he's hot stuff. And he came in there a week before the vetting committee was to vote on who they were going to recommend. And of course, he sends out this know-it-all email, extremely arrogant, talking about those he didn't like and why he didn't like them and why the Central Committee should pick his choices because, he's a great savant. He's the one that's the political genius here in Kootenai County because, after all, he came from Washington, D.C. And as I was told just the other day, that his wife, when they first came here, immediately got on the board of one of the Republican women groups. So Bruce, he had his angle. And that angle of the candidates that he wanted for county commissioner also was strangely the same ones that the Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge 43, better known as the Kootenai County Deputy Sheriff's Association, and their political action committee, well, they wanted those too. And they didn't align with those that the KCRCC eventually suggested and put their stamp of approval on, like Mark Everline and Leslie Duncan. The FOP and Bruce wanted Brett Surplus, who's got a past. You can go and look at my previous episodes, All Roads Lead to Matari, and Sleepy Dale Gibney. But, the clincher was, and this is what I found hilarious, and we're going to talk about this here in a second. That mailer that went out, that Bob Norris admitted to allowing the Kootenai County Sheriff's badge to be used by a political action committee, his Deputy Sheriff's Association, that they get money and they can take that money and put it towards campaigns. Now, they don't put it into the actual candidates' coffers. No, instead, they run their own advertisements. And Bob Norris is a direct recipient of this. And he allows them to use the sheriff's office badge, and they put it on a green stripe, green-backed flyer that went out in the mail, and it had President Trump because, of course, we all want to align with President Trump. And then you had Sheriff Bob Norris, and you had the two county commission candidates that were not the KCRCC recommended. But here's the one that burned most people that were good people at the KCRCC at the precinct committeeman level. Well, each neighborhood had a customized mailer that included whatever North Idaho Republican or other non-KCRCC PC choice was. And as a result, the Central Committee lost 30 positions of their incumbents, those that had been faithful and loyal to the KCRCC, and they lost to largely North Idaho Republicans. Now, I have nothing to say about, because I don't know any of these people. I know one, but I don't have enough to say whether they're good or bad. But I know that a lot of those that were part of the KCRCC were extremely angry about Bob Norris and his double cross. And we know that ties back to Bruce Matari, because Bruce Matari's wife, Carla, just happened to be handling the social media page of the Fraternal Order of Police Deputy Sheriff's PAC.
Jumping in with a quick question. It's related. Yeah. When is Bruce up to be unelected?
Not soon enough.
Yeah.
Not soon enough.
That was a question from YouTube. Thanks for asking.
2 years. So he did this massive backstab, and he did what he wanted to do. And we were told, well, you know what? This really fractured the party. In fact, people were so angry at Bob Norris because Bob is told by Brent that you're going to have to do a I'm sorry video, that I didn't give permission to use, the sheriff's badge to advertise for candidates that were, non-KCRCC endorsed. I gave them permission for certain ones, but not all of them. And then, of course, Deputy Nick Franson, who is the president of the FOP, he returns a favor and he says, look, in his social media posts, we're being called liars. We did get permission, and it's a sad day when, we're being basically pissed on. That's my own words. So we hear that there's this great disruption and that so many people at the Central Committee are absolutely angry and disgusted by Bob Norris. And it sort of seemed that way. Mm-hmm. I mean, you had the float. We were in all the parades along with them. And on the float, they had everybody's signs for the first couple of weeks, but they didn't have Bob Norris.
He was just in a timeout.
Timeout. Good. That's a good one.
That's
I love
what
that.
It was.
So, of course,
they showed him.
We hear for weeks and weeks and weeks that, you know what, there's going to be a demand that with Bob's double crossing of the Republican Central Committee PCs that are so angry that they lost these 30 seats that, well, you know what, a reckoning's coming and they're going to vote to unendorse him. And I heard this over and over and over again, but I didn't ever give it any clout myself. I appreciate those that had faith in it, but the reality is Bob is the central figure for the KCRCC.
He's the main attraction.
He has to be there. And if Bob's not there, then what does the credibility of the KCRCC in general even have anymore? So we find ourselves last night. Now, I've heard secondhand accounts, so I'm going to preface this by saying that I have not heard directly from one of the attendees.
As you're getting ready to tell us what happened last night, I just want to break in and say we are going to get back to your questions. So if you have them, drop them right into the comment section and we'll make sure to get through those in order because we do have some coming in. We also have a fun back and forth going between Mike and Mike. Two different mics.
Mike, just hold on. We're going to talk about you shortly. So
we're coming back. So KCRCC and last night.
So they met last night to, I guess, re-endorse their candidates that already went through the vetting process. And from what it sounds like, they had the Dirty 30, not my words. That's the name of these 30 new electeds that were, that had beat out the former KCRCC sweethearts. And the idea was that, these 30 needed to have a chance now to put their stamp of approval on re-endorsing or approving or whatever we're going to call it, recommending these candidates. And we heard that Bob was going to definitely get ejected.
He was going to get the boot.
He was going to get the boot for his bad, naughty behavior. Bad Bob. Well, the way I heard it went, and if it changes next week, I will come back and correct the record. But they grouped all the PCs in certain, groupings where they sat. And then when it came to Bob, and maybe it was the others, but I was just told Bob, that a motion was made to unendorse him. And rather than doing things by secret ballot, instead they had to take a audible, voice ballot.
Audible vote.
Audible vote, voice vote. And you know what? 3 or 4 people actually said, yeah, we don't want to endorse Bob. The rest of them all voted hook, line, and sinker, all in step for the traitor. So what do we conclude? One of a couple things. One is that because Bob is such a bully, and we hear this all the time, that some of those poor PCs did not want to go on the record when it should have been a secret ballot. But, I don't even know if Robert's Rules of Order were even used. But he got the overwhelming endorsement again. And so he gets rewarded, knowing that he has a tort claim right now against him by credible witnesses that say that it did happen, and all the many other things that are surrounding Bob Norris and his sketchiness, to include, the double crossing. Remember, KCRCC people, you rewarded a dude that cut you in the throat, stabbed you in the back. No offense to the North Idaho Republicans. You guys were the ones that benefited from it. But if he did it to them, he's eventually going to do something like that to you. And he was rewarded. So the 4 or so, or maybe it was 5, but whatever small group that came out that said, Bob does not deserve to be re-endorsed. My hat's off to you. Mad respect. But KCRCC, you now own this. Every last one of you that didn't have the courage to do the right thing by ejecting him, you now own this. You are inseparable from Bob Norris. And anything that comes out about Bob Norris, those of you that have been privy to information that you should have been going, what's going on with this guy? Well, guess what? You guys will now forever be tied to it. And all of you folks that are not, that are listening right now and watching, that are not a part of this Kootenai County Central Committee, know that they're going to put out a mailer. And this mailer is brain dead people. If you believe that Kootenai County is a Republican area rather than a conservative area, you go directly to this, Central Committee mailer that goes out, this little red flyer, and it tells you mindlessly who to check off. Don't fall for it. Use your brain. There is a leader right now that is far greater, a far better solution than Bob Norris, who has articulated the plan, who has met with people and shared. liberty without compromise. And I am not joined to one party. Now, I'm personally extremely conservative, but I will protect everybody's rights because I believe in the Bill of Rights. And I won't go to your house and pull a book out that I don't think you should have. I won't come into your house and take your book. I won't go into a library and take a book that I unlawfully don't have a right to take. That's up for the citizens, who, by the way, have allowed this to happen through your state legislators that you keep electing, that aren't changing the laws, for conduct that can be held in public. It is a cultural war right now, and those that don't align with your conservative values are winning because you guys have allowed them to. So enough said on that. KCRCC, good luck with that.
We have a really compelling piece of video from Bruce Matari that's been circulating the internets again. And we're going to talk about that. That's going to be the next thing.
The Bruce and Bob Circus?
I don't know if it's the Bruce and Bob. Oh, there's the Bruce and Bob Circus, but there's another fun Bruce Matari video. So I don't know which one of those we're going to hit first, but we do need to get to some questions. So one that I left here for a while comes from Kyle Farrell on Facebook. Do you think there should be more training for pursuits and pit?
Well, Kyle, great question. I don't think we train enough on anything. As you know, you're only going to rise to the level of your highest amount of training and proficiency. So yes, in pursuits, in DT, in firearms, we do not train enough. And this is one of the things that fundamentally I differ with Bob Norris. And I'm going to bring a lot more training into the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office because I believe that we can't train enough. And yes, pit maneuvers, high speed, all EVOC courses should be routinely, we should be routinely certifying all of our deputies at least yearly. But yes, I'm a huge fan of all things training. In fact, when I was a reserve officer, not only did I meet the minimum 4-hour in-service training each month and the firearms training and the EVOC, but I also paid to go to additional classes myself because in order to be an effective law enforcement professional on the street, you have to have training.
They're perishable skills.
They are
and
absolutely
I've heard you talk about
skills.
that before. So if you're not training, you're going to lose it. A question from Brad Cree on Facebook. As a veteran, I'm always interested in people's thoughts on the right to burn an American flag in protest.
Yeah. Well, so I hear what you're, I think I sense what maybe you're thinking. Patriots should not burn flags. Even if you're not a patriot, you should not burn your flag. I mean, it's kind of like pissing on your family photos. You just don't do that. But we do have a First Amendment right, and the Supreme Court has already ruled that is illegal. I think it's highly immoral. But people do have a right to do their protest, albeit they can't burn other things down and be reckless. But even though I don't like that, my daughter served in the U.S. Navy. My son-in-law is still serving in the U.S. Navy. I take these things extremely personal to a certain extent. But that's my view on it. And I think it's a great disservice to all the men and women since the beginning of the Continentals that fought with Washington to do such a despicable thing. But they do have a right to do that.
Thank you, Brad, for asking that question. And a reminder to everybody else, if you've just joined in, you've still got time to put your question right into that comment section, or you can continue dialoguing back and forth with each other. Some of you are doing that, and that's been fun to watch. I want to get to talking about this Bruce Matari and Bob Circus. So I want you to guide the way on where I can help you visually and what I'm going to play here, but let's go for that.
So Bob and Bruce can't ever seem to get on the same page with their talking points. And they frequently change the talking points and change the goalpost, so to speak. And we're going to talk about other people changing the goalpost here if we get enough time. But, Bruce Matari likes to taunt people and be a schmuck to citizens that he does not like. People say all the time, even though they've never caught it on video, that I blow up at people, that I've got a temper. Well, Bruce, you bloviating knucklehead. You like to call people like me cupcake in your county meetings. You like to disrespect when you know that nothing's going to happen to you, because you wouldn't do that to me in a dark alley. But you had a citizen who had had spoken out at a county commissioner meeting a couple weeks ago on the LPRs. And you made this comment, well, you're an open book and people should come and speak to you. And, if people were really concerned, they could have come to other meetings and, they should have called you. And of course, you guys already rolled out these license plate recognition, the not only the cameras, but you were using those in demo mode for many months without a policy. We already know this. We have the records. You had purchased, through allowing Bob to have the budget to buy the cameras for 36 vehicles. So I'm guessing there's 70 some cameras. Maybe there's more. But you had already purchased those through the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. They were already installed on vehicles. And then you want to gaslight the people by saying, well, we could have come and talked to you. When was that supposed to be? When you put the cameras on, before or after, or when? So anyway, this citizen came back a couple weeks later to finish that conversation that he had with Bruce Matari. Now, for full disclosure, this guy that is speaking, his name is Bill Breezy. Bill Breezy is a friend and a supporter. So full disclosure, I'm not making any kind of attempt to distance myself or to claim I don't know him, but I want you to listen to what he has to say, and then we're going to look and see what Bob and Bruce had to say.
They were all true. This piece of paper was a lie. Did you know that, Leslie? I don't think so.
I wasn't there.
But Bruce couldn't have told you anyway, because he has a non-disclosure agreement with the sheriff. Laugh, Bruce.
There's no laughing. A simple public records request would establish that I do not have a non-disclosure agreement with anybody. Okay, and I obviously don't want to interfere with your golf game.
Okay,
but
So what he was saying is, Bill Breezy said to Bruce, "Hey, you have a non-disclosure agreement, and the special deputization." Bruce comes back after he smirks, and I personally have experienced the smirk. So that's what he does. In fact, if you watch him badger Leslie Duncan on a regular basis, that's just what he does. And then he always becomes the victim. When you listen to him talk for any amount of time, he always turns it around like a professional change agent, which he is. He's been formally trained, I'm certain, as a change agent. But he always brings it back to him and why he's the victim. Well, you heard him say right there that he does not have any non-disclosure agreement. And yet, last year, not even a year ago, in the November 18th edition of the Coeur d'Alene Press, when Bob and Bruce are talking to the reporters about this special deputization that Bruce has, I'm going to read a couple things here from that you might find interesting. Kootenai County Commissioner Bruce Matari is among the sheriff's special deputies. He is the only elected official with special deputy status, Norris said. When Norris ran for office in 2020, Matari was his campaign manager. Norris swore Matari in as a special deputy advisor after taking office in early 2021. Did you hear that? So his campaign manager received a special deputization without any previous law enforcement experience, no extensive background checks, no psychs, no polys, none of that, but he becomes a special deputy. Norris goes on to say, it means I talk with him over critical matters related to the office of the sheriff, Norris said. His communication skills are outstanding and very professional, so I use Bruce in that regard. Norris said Matari advises him on a case-by-case basis about anything to do with messaging, including some news releases. Matari said his role involves just trying to get it right when it comes to the community and that he has not been paid for his services. Being a special deputy advisor allowed the sheriff to have a more candid conversation with me about the issues inside the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office and how that affects the community. Matari said in an email to the press, "As an advisor and now a commissioner, I recognize the value and the importance of maintaining a strong relationship between government in general and law enforcement specifically within our community." It goes on to talk about him talking in his published blog. He says, "I simply provided advice to the sheriff about the issues that affect the community, mostly through better communication. There's nothing top secret about his special deputy role," Matari said, "but he's not at liberty to discuss the details." Here's the clincher. special deputies sign a non-disclosure agreement, Norris said. So, Bruce, are you lying, or is Sheriff Bad Boy Bob lying? You've been dancing around this since I've been bringing this up for months now, and you claim that it's no big deal. But we do have your signed oath. We do know that you have said that you have a special deputy, that you signed a non-disclosure agreement. And we know this from other videos that you've done with the sheriff. So quit gaslighting people. Quit lying. Once and for all, tell us what you get privileged information about. Tell us that, for the record, that you were right there in the video and that Bob Norris is wrong. We're dying to know. So...
And I don't think they need to orchestrate a dog and pony show in order for you to prove them wrong. As the elected officials, these are easy enough questions to answer to just say, tell us the truth. Tell us what's going on. Coming up here in a couple of minutes, we're going to be discussing what's going on in our local news media. Where are the unbiased journalists? Mm-hmm. Where is the media coverage of Dan Wilson running against Bob Norris for Kootenai County Sheriff?
Crickets.
Where is it? But right now, another question from Logan on Facebook. You've mentioned concerns about the morale within the sheriff's office and the retention of deputies. What specific changes would you implement to improve the work environment for current deputies, jail staff, and dispatchers?
Number one, we're going to get rid of the deputy gang problem, which is those that are on Bob's team who take precedence over everybody else, and everybody else that is not a Bob sycophant, a Bob fan, they're kicked to the curb. We're going to go in and we're going to change everything so that it's merit-based. We're going to remind the deputies that to be a deputy, it's a calling, that you're there because you have a special anointing to do the work of the people, and that it comes with certain things that you must do. But we're also going to make certain that you start getting the deputies that are so gravely needed in the jail. We're still down 20 deputies. Despite the pay raises that the sheriff's office has received to give to deputies from the Board of County Commissioners, we know that morale is so bad, that turnover is so great, people are retiring. They're going to other agencies, not because just the pay, but because the morale is low. I've been told by countless deputies over and over again who does not show up to the jail. Bob Norris. Bob Norris doesn't show up to talk to his troops in the jail. The undersheriff does, and I've heard from many deputies that they appreciate that. But the forced overtime, the fact that I'm being told by reputable sources that we're one event away from having a consent decree where the DOJ comes in. So we're going to be changing a lot of that. We're going to bring in a model of extreme ownership. And we can talk more about that in a future episode. I've talked about it in previous, but we are going to make things a lot better because I know firsthand, running successful companies for 25 years, what it takes to take care of the people that take care of us. And ultimately, the deputies and the staff that are not torn are there to serve the public. And there's so many of you that are doing a great job. You're suffering. I've heard it. Hang in there. Hope's coming.
One more question from Logan, and then we're going to get on to talking about what in the world is going on in local news media. But another great question from Logan on Facebook. With your business and construction management background, how do you plan to navigate the steep learning curve in law enforcement administration? What steps will you take to ensure your decision-making is informed by the complexities of policing?
Well, like in my business, for 25 years, I've excelled by surrounding myself with subject matter experts. I was a 20-something young kid when I started my construction companies. And now I am at where I'm at now because I learned early on that if you want to be successful, you have to surround yourself by proven men and women in their various fields that know what they're talking about. You have to listen to their advice. There's a Proverbs that says, plans fail for lack of counsel, but out of an abundance of counsel, you will succeed. I've already chosen my undersheriff. My undersheriff has an extensive background when it comes to law enforcement. So the undersheriff who runs the day-to-day operations, I have advisors. I have a lot of former law enforcement professionals that are advising me on all sorts of policies. So look, I adapt really quick. I adapt very quickly to things, and I have no doubt that with the right team that I will surround myself with, including a shakeup inside command, that the learning curve won't be as steep as what you may think. And you also may not believe that I know as much as I actually do. So,
do you think Bob Norris was prepared for getting into budget situations? Has he ever personally written a budget?
Bob Norris has never created a job out of thin air. Bob Norris has never played with a budget that was derived of his own dollars, his own treasure, where the consequences of failing meant catastrophic, failure and consequences for his own personal life. When it comes to Bob Norris, he's never produced a resume to tell us exactly what he did. We have been told that Bob Norris had a heart attack in 2003 and was off work for almost a year. I've been told this. I have seen documents that are very credible, and that he came back in when his friend, a captain, offered him a job. This was after he gave Paul Tanaka a $600 contribution for his Gardenia mayor race. And Bob came back in because my understanding is he was not going to be qualified to be on the street anymore due to the heart attack and the stents that he had in his heart. And so he was given this cush job. Now, we have no metrics to measure exactly how successful Bob was. He says that he did certain things, but it's not verifiable. And Bob was only a lieutenant. He was a lieutenant of an intelligence wing that was funded by Homeland Security. Don't forget that, folks. Joint Regional Intelligence Center, which Bob brags about, where he managed assets like the CIA and the FBI. Well, that's what he was doing there. He claims that he was managing 350 people, but he was always managing budgets that other people derived, taxpayer dollars, and all these other safeguards and professionals inside that office. But he hasn't had the experience like I have. And so when it comes to Bob and his decision making, he chose, no offense to Brett Nelson, but Brett Nelson was never a supervisor of any kind. And yet right now, he is the one running the day-to-day operations of the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, of dispatch, of the jail, of patrol. And all he ever was a corporal. That's a field training officer down in California. I heard that he was an outstanding patrolman. But by the same standards of those knuckleheads that have continued to disparage me for the past 10 months, saying I have no command experience, then what does Brett Nelson know about command if as a corporal, not even to the level of a sergeant, not a lieutenant, not a captain, not a major, and he's now running the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office day-to-day operations. And I hear from the deputies on the inside that he's doing a good job in a lot of respects, but he has to do a lot of cleanup behind Bob because Bob says crap that he knows, Brett knows, is not true or not factual or can't be done. So I have 10 times the amount of raw experience in leading men and organizations because I earned my way. Not like Bob that had hundreds of other support staff to pick him up if he failed, or tax dollars that could come floating back in if he mismanaged. I mean, he was managing budgets that Homeland Security gave. So I don't know. Guess I'm off my rant.
Good rant. Now, local media.
Yeah.
We've noticed the failure to recognize almost the absolute failure, other than an original publishing of the press release that you entered the race at the end of last year, the race for Kootenai County Sheriff. And aside from that, you have local news media outlets that just fail to really acknowledge all of what's going on in this race, especially as it's heating up. And we know that the citizens here in Kootenai County are recognizing who Dan Wilson is. The support is growing by the day.
Right.
And we've really had to create our own method and means and media distribution channels in an effort to do that, because we don't seem to have an unbiased media here that reports on things that should be investigated.
Yeah.
Investigative reporting.
Yeah.
So what do you see, where did you want to go with that? I'm not sure what you're
I'm looking for
here.
a slide that I don't have, but really to set this up, a week ago or so, Bob Norris put out a press release And in this press release, and I'm sorry that
Was that the slide you were looking for?
I was looking for that slide. But in this press release, you guys can go back on the Instagram or Facebook page. He talks about disinformation. With Bob, anytime somebody challenges him, he talks about disinformation. And in this particular case, it was regarding the license plate readers. And I've already debunked his horseshit. Whoops.
Whoop, beep.
I already debunked what he was saying. He had no policies. And he didn't have any policies the month prior when I did my records request, when there was no previous and there were no current policies. But he wanted to bloviate and say that Dan Wilson, unnamed, of course, can't handle the powerful data information that these license plate readers access and have access to. And that data is too dangerous in a guy like me. After I just literally said prior to that, we don't want that here in Kootenai County. And then I cited my sources of Motorola saying exactly where I found my information that I brought before the public. But Bob, the insincere knucklehead buffoon that he is, literally brushed right over the fact that he had been using these license plate reader cameras and the technology, meaning the license, the software. He'd already been using it for months in demo mode. And he didn't have any policies. This is such important information. He doesn't have any policies on how to protect the people. And he's recognized that and he's going to do it. But he'd already been using it for months. So what happened to that data? And by the way, what happened when he decided to purchase all those cameras without talking to the public before, he put them on 36 patrol vehicles? And he says, well, we've had license plate readers around here for years, but the devil's in the details. And the cameras that we currently have are nothing compared to what we have now. And after 16 years, Americans, especially Americans in Kootenai County that love our privacy, we're starting to say, no, we don't want it. But Bob puts out this press release saying, there's a lot of disinformation, and he tries to discredit by saying that I didn't provide my sources, which I did. I've already provided them for other people to download. But also, he wants people to only trust sources, once again, his words, reputable news organizations that have board of directors, reputable. And I thought it was so funny because, I don't know, he uses a lot of alternative media here locally to run interference for him. We're going to talk about this. Yeah. But I think I have a video because here he is continually saying that the BC preacher is not credible, that the BC preacher, Quincy Franklin, is propaganda. He doesn't like Casey Whalen. He doesn't like other alternative news sources that don't report glowingly about him. But yet, look at this video here. I don't know if we have that video queued. I want you to hear what he had to say back in March of this year regarding the Coeur d'Alene Press, ironically, about the special deputizations, where he has direct quotes in there and he never requested a retraction or a correction. You guys take a look at this video and listen to what Bob has to say about the Coeur d'Alene Press, somebody that has a board.
Take anything, the CD Press is called hearsay. I mean, that's hearsay because that's not a direct chain of evidence. So anything that they say, you have to confirm. And I think I know you should know that because I think you do have some experience in law enforcement and you should know that. So why would you even cite the CDA Press without confirming what they say? No, what's that? Quote, but okay, so I as a law enforcement officer should use a quote in the CDA Press as an articulable fact? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I'm disappointed because I think that you know better. All right, let's go ahead and go around.
So here's the thing, folks. Bob Norris is a liar. Basically, at the moment, whatever he needs to plead, he's going to say, we've shown you this right here. You can see it in the press release. In fact, I should take that marked up one. I don't know how we can send it out to the masses so they can see that I'm not lying. But Bob Norris, like Bruce Matari, are desperate, bloviating politicians that continually change their story when it's convenient. So, Bob, if the Coeur d'Alene Press is not reputable, by your own words, and they have a board, well, then How dare you say that, other alternative media that doesn't have a board is not legit? Oh, wait a second. Unless they happen to be your allies, allies like Mike Petum that helps manage the North Idaho, North Idaho News? Yeah. So we're going to look at a couple pictures here that I just want to hone in and show people who Mike is. I think it's important that you guys know. Mike Petum is the dude. You got that slide up, number 2?
Yeah.
Mike Petum is recording this event for, I guess, North Idaho News that was at Spirit Lake on August 28th. So the guy in the blue, ball cap, tall dude, and he's also always flanks Bob at all sorts of events. We've got numerous pictures of him around town at Lakeland, football games, etc. So there he is. Now, here's what he had to say on our, I guess, Facebook page a week ago. He said that because I came out against the LPRs and I talked about the Huntington Beach helicopter pilot with Huntington Beach PD that crashed his helicopter and is now up in Kootenai County as a volunteer pilot for the Kootenai County Regional Air Support Unit, that helicopter that the county doesn't own, but we use. He also happens to be the same salesman that is promoting the $104,000 5-year contract for the license plate reader technology software. So this is a little background as to why Petum now says that Dan Wilson is anti-law enforcement. He says, Idaho Sheriff, we are pro-law enforcement, military, and first responders. If you got blocked, it's because you attacked one of those groups. You've taken this personal vendetta towards Sheriff Norris and turned it on the men and women of the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. False. I'm still not sure why someone running for sheriff would do that. You even bashed a volunteer helicopter pilot that had an accident, mechanical failure, that resulted in loss of life. That's a serious low. The man lives with that every day of his life and is trying to serve and get slapped with that. And as a quick disclosure, I'm not making fun of him, but I am reporting facts. And if you don't like the facts, as a newsman, then you probably should go back to doing something that doesn't require truth, maybe do something fiction-wise. But the fact of the matter is that the National Transportation and Safety Board did say it was pilot error, and it was largely due to lack of sleep as he was flying between Kootenai County and Huntington Beach. So then he goes on and says, by the way, I do press releases for Kootenai County Sheriff's Office, not Bob Norris on North Idaho News. So I thought that was very interesting. So I did a records request. He's claiming, and he's on scene very, very quickly. So wonder if he has a radio or something else that allows him to get the scoop, off of encrypted police radios. I don't know. But he says that he does press releases for Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. So my records request came back as unable to respond, no known records to exist for 1, 2, and 3. And here was my records request. Please answer the following questions. Does Mike Petum work in any capacity, paid or unpaid, for KCSO? And if so, what is his title and compensation? Number 2, does Mike Petum provide official press release for Kootenai County Sheriff's Office as he has publicly stated? 3, please provide all emails between Sheriff Robert Norris and Mike Petum from 7/1/24 to 9/4/24. So, Mike, I don't really know if you were trying to impress us or if the sheriff's office is lying or if you're misunderstood or what. But hey, brother, you're the one that said what you said. We provided the information to the sheriff's office. They claim that you don't work there. So are you doing this on the side for Bob Norris? Please, let us know exactly what you're doing so that we can understand your comment, because it was important enough for you to tell us as to why you blocked the Idaho Sheriff from North Idaho News.
And I'm just going to do a share here for anybody who may not be familiar with what North Idaho News is. They created a Facebook page. So this is an organized Facebook page that was created February 27th, 2018. They've got 3 admins to the page. They actually have not gone through Meta's verification process yet. But they are claimed to be North Idaho News. They're a media news company. Mm-hmm. And so Mike Petum is the one that seems to be the guy that gets around town. And certainly not an unbiased reporter, not unbiased when he's sharing press
Bob,
releases for Kootenai County Sheriff's Office.
Bob, my question is, is Mike Petum and the folks over at North Idaho News also false news because they don't have a board of directors? Maybe they do. I don't know. I couldn't find it.
Has Mike Petum shared any press releases from Dan Wilson for Kootenai County Sheriff?
Yeah. Have you?
Because, he's saying he gets a list of press releases. Okay, we get it. But I mean, when we're just talking about unbiased reporting, and you know what, we already know we're going to get clapped back. Okay, you guys you're sore losers.
No,
we don't have the local media on our side. Is there more to this? Does it get deeper in terms of local media? Because that's one aspect. That's North Idaho News. It's a Facebook page. Are there other legit local, quote, independent media that report on the news around here?
Well, no, if you happen to be an independent news outlet and you are interested in the stories and the things that we have been uncovering, or at least providing documentation for in our stories, go ahead and contact us. We would love to share with you what we have. It's already public, but we can point you in the right direction. Again, the only reason we're bringing up Mike Petum is because there's 3 of them currently right now. They're alternative media who they themselves are coming on to numerous forums, and they're running their mouths and they're saying a lot of things that they cannot back, and they are representing themselves as media. So how can you be representing yourself as a media source that's unbiased when you engage in the diatribe that you are? How different are you than, the major media groups who do the exact same thing, as we even saw in the debate last night with Trump? Now, the next one I want to talk about is Kootenai Journal. And Kootenai Journal is run by, probably owned, I don't know this for certain, by Charity Joy Miser. There's her website. I think it's interesting what she says her mission statement is. What is her mission statement? You can read it.
The mission of the Kootenai Journal is to report the news truthfully without personal commentary so that our North Idaho community is well-informed, educated, and inspired.
Yeah, so if you go to slide number 5, I want to point this out. So Charity Joy is unabashedly a Bob Norris fan. She frequently writes about Bob Norris. She did one interview of mine last winter. But she hasn't really done any follow-ups. In fact, she has frequently made a lot of comments disparaging me and in essence calling me a liar. So here is Charity with Bob Norris at the coffee event back in Spirit Lake a couple weeks ago. That's the one, of course, where famously Bob Norris was asked by Quincy Franklin if human trafficking or sex trafficking exists in Kootenai County. And Bob says, I don't know. Does it? If you see it, you can arrest them. So I don't know. That's a Charity with her friend, and I don't know if I have my other. And we've slides.
Got the reason that Charity Joy of Kootenai Journal becomes an important figure in this discussion is her innate ability to be on posts and comments and following up with any time there's anything negative said about candidate Bob Norris. She's there to run to the rescue, correct the record, and really be quite disparaging to anybody that doesn't agree with her opinion.
Yeah.
And so we had one of those comments that was quite involved today.
I'm gonna read it because, again, I screwed the slide up. But if you're on Facebook, you probably already saw this. And again, is there a way that we can?
I put it up there.
Okay, so you already found it. Okay.
Yeah.
So what it says is Charity Joy, she's commenting about me, and she says, this reminds me of the time North Idaho Republicans mimicked the KCRCC campaign material. It was a classic progressive Democrat move. Very interesting to see the Liberty Without Compromise campaign proxies using the same progressive Democratic formula. Other than labeling himself as the Idaho Sheriff while never holding the title or working as law enforcement officer in Idaho, is there anything original about Wilson's gutter-style political campaign? That's a little hurtful. I mean, I understand why you guys are sore that Bob wasn't smart enough to secure the IdahoSheriff.com, and I understand that you guys somehow make the jump that people really take it serious that I am the Idaho Sheriff. Not saying that I'm the Kootenai County Sheriff, but, the Idaho Sheriff, kind of like the American Sheriff. But, I understand why that's upsetting. Goes on to say, all the campaign has done so far is regurgitate right-leaning talking points without substantive policy initiatives to implement said right-leaning ideology. I know more about constitutional principles, leadership, and implementing policy initiatives than Wilson and his entire campaign cadre. It's painful to listen to a candidate who constantly contradicts himself while exposing his complete lack of understanding on the application of the federal Constitution, the Idaho State Constitution, jurisdictional authority, and the judicial role in upholding the rule of law. It's a mouthpiece. I'm a mouthful. I'm really glad, Charity, that you know how much I do or don't know about the Constitution. I'm certain, I'm certain that when you were a part of the John Birch Society, before you got kicked out, that you probably know a lot more. And I'm guessing that, you probably know way more than me. Okay. You got me. You're not running for sheriff, by the way. So, you're welcome to run for sheriff too. How those who live outside the Dan Girl click views the Wilson campaign, hypocritical, unimaginative, and phony. So this is Charity Joy losing her mind on numerous forms. She started yesterday when Blaine Holt gave his endorsement. So here you have Mike Petum that's side by side with Bob Norris all of the time. You have Charity Joy that shows up at numerous Norris events, always covering him, and they're quite cozy, as you saw from that picture. Oh, by the way, her husband at that meeting was sitting right beside her, great representative of her, as the press. She was there as her official press capacity, and he wanted to call me an Adam Henry because I wouldn't answer a question that Bob tried turning back on me when it was his town hall. So here's what Charity Joy had to say about Blaine Holt.
Before, I think that might be a little more involved. So I just want to let everybody know we've gone over the hour that we typically do. So we're going to hang on for just a little bit more here. We may not be able to get back to your questions just because it has been long.
If we have a question, let's answer those. Those take precedence.
They're just comments floating in, and there might be some further up, but just
so we'll close with this, talking about how unhinged this independent journalist is. And again, Bob, same question, which I know you won't answer, but the people out there probably will come to their own conclusion. So what is reputable media then? Only those that follow you around, that are continually stumping for you while they're claiming that they're independent? The Coeur d'Alene Press, are they liars? So who is and who isn't legitimate media? In fact, people start asking Norris in writing on his Facebook page, wherever you come into contact with him, what exactly is reputable news or reputable media? Because, the First Amendment makes it pretty clear. You have the right to free press. And you don't get to be the governor on who is and who isn't legitimate press. So Charity goes on after the endorsement by retired General Blaine Holt. Breaking: Bob is a man of strong character, integrity, and unwavering respect for the Constitution, says dozens of enlisted NCO combat veterans, including my own retired NCO husband who served more than 30 years with over half deployed to S-holes across the world. Being a combat veteran doesn't automatically slap a conservative bona fide stamp onto a person. Just look at retired Commander Jim Woodward from Bonner County. If we want to play this game, let's tally a scorecard and see which candidate has more combat vet support. I'll put heavy odds on Norris, and if it wasn't illegal and against my moral code, I bet cold, hard cash on it. Well, how well does Holt know Wilson to assess his character? How can he hold the opinion, but it doesn't hold, he can hold the opinion, but it doesn't carry weight without a long-standing personal relationship with the person he's vouching for. A 4-star General Milley is a piece of, as are many flag officers. As Holt is a member of the CFR and a NATO advisor, the globalist warmongering institutions that conservatives universally despise. For the record, I don't have a problem with Holt's association or his recent political activism. It just amazes me that Wilson and his proxies will excoriate Norris for the support of the FOP while embracing the support of Blaine and so on. So, folks, when you are reading these comments, and we didn't even get to half of them, we didn't even talk about the Kootenai County Spectator.
Yeah. Yep.
The reason that we're bringing this up is not to necessarily belittle or to separate people out. These are people that have engaged, relentlessly engaged on multiple forums online, many times spreading absolute lies, lies that we have provided the answers to for months. And yet this independent journalist aligns herself so close to Bob that it has clouded her ability to be impartial. So when you're looking at the Kootenai Journal.
And again, that mission statement from the Kootenai Journal, their mission is to report the news truthfully without personal commentary so that our North Idaho community is well informed, educated, and inspired. And I understand that she is exhibiting her right to free speech. She's
on her
separated
personal
on, and
but
she
she's
is commenting
inseparable.
personally.
Everybody in these forums already knows who she is. So, she's doing in her own personal, but this is a small community, and no different than when Bryant Bushling, who was a prosecuting attorney back in around 2020, made some disparaging comments about, African Americans. You can't separate yourself in certain instances from what you say privately when you're in an official capacity, and the same applies here. That's my firmly held belief. So, Charity, if you think otherwise, then I'd be glad to sit down and have a conversation with you. But knowing that you're extremely hostile when we have our encounters, that your husband, who is there with you when you're in your official capacity, wants to call me out a Adam Henry and to challenge me there. I mean, give me a break. Same thing with Mike. Mike, you follow Bob around to football games. You follow him everywhere. We've all nicknamed you his bouncer. So are you legitimate news? Or are you quasi news? Are you half fun news? Are you clickbait? What are you? And why did you say that you handle press releases for the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office when Kootenai County Sheriff's Office says they have no record of you being employed there? So
one question on the way out here, as we've gone over a little bit, you can remember to join us next Wednesday night at 7 p.m. And we've got so much happening between now and the election. I know that we will be doing probably ramping up our live streams from once a week to twice a week, and also producing special segments just because there is so much here to cover. And I know some important stuff we wanted to tonight. But this question comes from Quincy, the BC preacher. When you become the new and worthy sheriff of Kootenai County, will you continue with live streams like this for the community?
Dawna and I have talked about that. Our intention is yes. I think that one of the things that we've learned through this process is that the greatest way for us to get out and to interact with the community at large is doing this, where people can participate when they're home with their families. They don't have to drive out to a location, and they can download and watch what we had to say later on. Now, it's obviously going to change a little bit in flavor because we won't be in campaign mode anymore, but we will also still have town halls, but I won't be bringing 12 uniforms with me at a cost of several $1,000s per event, disguised as a campaign event disguised as a town hall. But we will be meeting with everybody when time allows. And I'm looking forward to being shoulder to shoulder. As Quincy, as you and I have talked about from day one, Dan Wilson's belief is Dan Wilson is no better than anybody else. We are all equal. We're working shoulder to shoulder in the cause for liberty. And I love the people that I meet out in Kootenai County all the time. So I want you folks on this solemn day not to forget the freedom that we currently have, that we're close to losing, especially after the Patriot Act, when we started seeing the erosion of our rights. And I don't care whether or not you are extremely conservative in your viewpoints or extremely liberal in your viewpoints. If you love liberty, if you love the Bill of Rights, join with me. Kick all these parties to the curb. Vote on the substance of the man and what he has been saying without changing for month after month after month. I look forward to being your next sheriff, joining me in this cause. Remember, we didn't descend from fearful men. We descended from men who understood the time, they acted accordingly, and they dedicated their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. The solution is not violence, folks. It is the Constitution. Despite what people are lying about right now and saying, Dan Wilson has never one time stated that we need a civil war. In fact, that is an outright lie. I've continually called over and over for all citizens to join together to preserve liberty. We already have the groundwork. The foundation's there. Stay strong. Stay encouraged. Always be encouraged. Now, May God bless you all. May God bless America. We'll see you soon.
Thank you for joining us tonight here on the Idaho Sheriff live stream broadcast with Dan Wilson for Kootenai County Sheriff. Over on Instagram, Fox Contracting Services says, "We need this change. You have my vote. Keep up the fight. Let's go." And then also from Matt on Instagram, "You made a huge impression on my 7-year-old son. The highlight of his day was meeting you."
I love meeting him too, man. Tell him hello for me.
We've got, remember to join us every Wednesday night for this live stream broadcast, 7 p.m.
Look for our billboard.
Elijah says, "Hello, I met you before." And remodel my Idaho home on Instagram. You are the people's guy. Thanks for joining us there, you guys. Lodestar Construction got your back. Let's go. Let's get it done.
Love you all.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Idaho Sheriff, to get automatic reminders and to see those great videos that we're putting out. Lots of special segments. The Idaho Sheriff podcast, you can listen and subscribe wherever you get your shows. Learn more about Dan Wilson, his platform policies, and viewpoints on our website at theidahosheriff.com. Koi Pond Kid, sorry I missed you guys. He's been canning. He's been busy.
Pickles.
You caught us right here at the end. But
Pickles.
yeah, send us some salsa and pickles, Koi Pond.
Liberty without compromise. Spread the message far. Spread it wide. I think it's time for a cigar.
Most definitely.
See you guys. Take care.